Lakota traditions, an individual's depression is a communal symptom. They are energetically receiving an illness that is somehow community based, with the belief that they are actually a higher being that is picking up, that something is dragging us all down. Unfortunately, my mom was Latina, which meant my sadness was strictly mine, and not at all a comment on her parenting and her overwhelming pressure to have me please her while she pleased everybody else. Her isolating response and even thought that my depression was somehow an act of ingratitude broke my heart because I really needed love, not a challenge to prove I loved her. Mm. I do not want him to know I'm sad, declared Rio. We walked aimlessly in a park as she contemplated whether or not to seek mental health help. Rio was one of my grown up friends, and even she did not expect it. She was partnered with Ismail for over 8 years before they decided to get married, and it wasn't even for a romantic reason as much as a legal one. They were informed that it was easier and better for them to buy a house and safer for them to buy a house if they were married. They went to the courthouse, signed the docs, and became husband and wife and homeowners within the same week. Their relationship was fun and financial. Two people that knew how to have a good time and make good investments, and for 1 year after their marriage, they that energy continued. And then she got pregnant. He thinks I'm too neurotic with the baby, she sighed. But it was true. They had decided to have a kind of after shower shindig of introducing their newborn son to high society slash us. Rio's family even visited from Brazil and Korea. And the event was a feast of food, music, and laughter, of which, in typical Latino fashion, we forgot we were celebrating a baby and put the children sleeping in the coat bedroom so we could twerk and drink more freely. Yet there was a problem. Rio did not look happy. Instead, she looked like the most distressed person in the world to smile. He said I look like I'm sinking on the Titanic and trying to give a happy face as the water rises. Rio said, insulted. But she did. In all the pictures, she just looked. She was not a woman that was known for hiding her feelings, and it was a secret worry of mine when she got pregnant. Out of all of us, she was the one most prone to anxiety, especially for stupid reasons. She was the friend that looked up the crime rates of any location before going, and often gifted us whenever we moved or went to on a vacation mini survival kits slash first aid ones. Because you never know, and sometimes they actually did come in handy. I was surprised when I needed a band aid. Moreover, I felt like she was oddly a testing ground for my worst case scenario of how my anxiety would affect my capacity to mom. There are always friends that reflect your parents in your own childhood. Rio's mom put a lot of pressure on her to be as people pleasing as she was, and the result was someone that was convinced everyone hated her before they even liked her. In some ways, that overwhelming training to be the perfect girl for all is why she embraced her interpersonal romantic relationship so deeply. It was relieving to find someone that was not only interested in her, but actually good to her. Ismail was honestly her third boyfriend, and the other two were just a few months. They had met in her third year of college, and they stayed together. He was a genuinely good guy, and he always handled her neuroses with humor. But something about her equating taking their child to the park with her taking her to her own grave pissed him off. And he was feeling torn and confused. His partner was changing, sinking into the darkest parts of her personality, and she could not mask it anymore with any attempts to please him or anyone. She just did not have the energy. Instead, her fears were being revealed and staying front and center, of what she was scared he was turning into an asshole because sometimes he did not feel compassionate. He felt annoyed. Whenever I told my mother I was depressed, she would say, again, and roll her eyes. As a child, my bouts of sadness were treated like they were personal ills that burdened my community, rather than a symptom of my community's burdens. They helped my dad further abuse me, and age only made them isolate me more in my own grief. It was a point of childhood contention Ismail had shared with me, because he too had his daddy issues. His father was super harsh and demanding of excellence, like most immigrant dads. He never let his son quit anything, but having to be good at everything only made him more confused as to what was good for him. He studied medicine, became a miserable doctor, and spent the last few years trying to change course by investing and learning things like real estate and AI, of which his parents quieted when they saw him make good money. Yet he never forgot the reaction to his unhappiness with their disgust and shock, which he did not want to show to Rio. But depressed people aren't easy. After all, what makes you think feeling down is not felt by others? Do you think I should get therapy or look into medicine? I mean, how long is self diagnosed postpartum supposed to last? She pondered. Well, I think the diagnosis, the official one at least, is very necessary, I replied. And, you shouldn't feel ashamed. People are just now becoming more open to saying motherhood is not easy on women. But even that sounds too light. We become in charge of human life with complete altruism. And unlike our parents, we are trying to raise our kids to love themselves, not love us in order to feel the right to love themselves. I think getting help can help you avoid the ways you felt helpless growing up. Damn. I was thinking that. Ugh, I'm just so scared something bad will happen to him. And I know there's no way I'm going to be a good mom with so much fear. Now I'm like, was that what my mom felt? Did she feel this scared? Is that why she made me a child adult? She felt like an adult child too. It was a question that permeated my mind. Hmm. All right, let's heal. Let's discuss. So, it's always weird. I've entered this era where I feel like I'm divided between two groups. My friends who are doing the things that adults do, which is get married and have kids and own houses, versus my other friends that, have their apartments that they rent and travel and are single or like revolving door of relationships. And who knows if we'll have kids? What? Like I think adulthood has been very frustratingly redefined, but also beautifully so because we were raised by parents that believed having the house and having the kids and having the 401k would heal all the love and the lack of love and the lack of happiness that they had growing up. There was this kind of mentality of what you get materially will heal what you didn't get spiritually. And I think that's why my father was so obsessed with being a lawyer more than the fact that he was a criminal. Was so obsessed with kind of hiding all his families from each other because there was something about having material things, especially with how horribly he treated me. I mean, he just thought I'm a king. I own stuff. You don't. And he had no heart. And it made me confused because here was this, I was so raised to believe, including by him, that you win materially because you are a winner morally, and you're a winner morally because you're a good person. Good people get good things, and yet we get lawyers and we get social justice warriors because that's not relatively true, right? Bad people can win. Bad people can be really end up being really rich, even more so than good people. And what I felt was because our generations don't have that, there's just no resources. People are not getting paid. People are overworked. People have to move back home to save money. Like the myth is gone. People are broke and they're broken about it. And I think for our generation, because we never got that financial payoff to the fact that we were never spiritually paid off, we've had to heal. And that has made us reanalyze parenting as I don't want to raise a child like my mother did and like her mother raised her with this idea that becoming a mom automatically heals the parts of you that were never allowed to be a child. I would be a flippin' idiot if I did that. And yet my dog is crying. But yet there are these parts of me that I'm so maternal and I would love to be a mom. And I would love to have the family one day. And I will. I really will. And who knows when it will happen. I think that it's better that it happens by surprise because what our previous generation showed us is heavy planning just goes to absolute ish. And there is this kind of concept that if I have a kid, they will heal me. And if I get the 401k and I have enough money for them and me, they're fine. And they should be grateful because I starved. And even now, it's not uncommon in BIPOC communities and especially poor communities, which is 99% of the population, to believe that children are somehow a financial investment. It's not uncommon for the poor to have a lot of kids and those kids to start working early. And even in my own family, there was, you had a kid to take care of, for somebody to take care of you when you were older. Even the ones that said, like my mother, oh, I don't want you to take care of me when I'm older. She said a few weeks ago, you're not going to take care of me when I'm older. It's this kind of pretend altruism. I had you so you could love yourself and be a good person and prosper. Yet they often cut us from feeling those things, from being those things without them, or without their input, or without their pain. And Rio and I, we were raised by people pleasing moms that made sure to please everybody and absolutely could not care. We just had to be pleased that we had them. And when I had depression, my mother thought it was such an insult to her wonderful parenting style. Like she just didn't see it as, maybe it's a symptom of my poor parenting style that my kid is unhappy. She saw it more as I was personally ungrateful. And then I had this father who just made me so evil by my nature that it broke my heart, and my depression started becoming more frequent, and I started getting more isolated, because that was the thing about my parents. When I did great, it was a symptom of their parenting. When I was sad, it was a symptom of my personal ingratitude. And it broke my heart. It just broke my heart because I was so desperate to be a good person and to be seen as a good person in their eyes. And I have had to accept that will never happen with my dad, but I've also had to accept that that will never happen with my mom. My mom and what my grandmother did this thing of kind of, one minute my mom was the best person in the world if she saved her from another betrayal she suffered from a family member, from a boss, especially financially. But she would also make fun of her in front of friends and act like my mom was always this rebellious, disrespectful child. And my mother, if my mother had to choose between me and her mom, she always chose her mom. Always. And my mother did the same thing to me. My mother ebbs and flows between these moments where she realizes that I was her mother, that she put a lot of pressure on me to make her happy and to coddle her and cuddle her. And then these moments where I'm just like everybody else, and somehow I just did not appreciate and love her enough. And Rio's mom was the same way. I think my mom was harsher, but I also think, Rio's family was wealthier. And I think that when you come from a wealthier family, her parents did stay together. There are the wealth and the stability of having two parents, even though they have their own traumas, kind of mask the trauma dumping of having a single parent, right? You're not their child, you're their partner. And I think Rio's depression manifested more in anxiety, and having a kid just blew that up because they were the couple everybody admired because they fit so well, and they've had such good luck in terms of investing and making money. And I think and I put it, that made Ismael kind of look at her flaws as humorous. You don't mind a neurotic person when you're in a all-inclusive bungalow that you paid for, and you're kind of making your immigrant parents proud. um Look at you with your money. I told you I made you cry for a reason. um and something about, well, having a kid just kind of made that anxiety really ugly and revealed that it's not normal and it's not okay, and maybe I should have healed this before. And this people pleasing tendency, Rio has always been somebody that how do I explain it? It kind of, she's just, we're just good at putting on a mask. let's just call spades a spade. We're good at acting okay when we're not, and taking ourselves out of the social mix if we're not being fun with everybody or fun to and for everybody. And having a kid really dropped that mask, and she just didn't have the energy or strength to hide. So now she has to go through it, and she has to heal these parts of her that I think she always knew she was anxious. It's just now you have this life. And I remember watching there's a recent Denzel interview, particularly he's been doing the rounds in Gladiator 2 and every 5 seconds going viral. And he was talking about how he has a lot of compassion and empathy for this current generation, because he feels that we are living in a time for information that is just so overwhelming. And perhaps we weren't meant to know as much as we do. Are we meant to know that everyone is dying in every corner of the earth and how they're dying? Are we meant to know so much about science and how things work? And information is beautiful, but it can be overwhelming. And it's great that we all have access to speaking our mind, because Lord knows censorship. But at the same time, like, there are moments when I doom scroll, right? And I just feel so overwhelmed by all the facts and by all the people, but really by all the people compartmentalizing and branding those facts to look like gurus or professional, educated freedom fighters. And the thing, like, I was watching a TikTok recently, and a guy said, those who pathologize, I think, those who pathologize um, abuse are just avoiding their own grief. And he said it with such a level of certainty that I was like, whoa, is that true? And then I realized that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And it had to be a white privileged guy. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. Of course, you have to pathologize. Of course, you have to process your pain. Of course, you have to see running threads and make theories about it. The point is, there comes a point where, are you feeding the wound or are you closing it? Are you healing or are you moving on? Both can be true. You date assholes, but you date them. And you have to be as accountable of your choice of them as you make them accountable for their douchery. Because I think there's also, it's something that I learned in my father's abuse, this real concept. And it's not by surprise that a lot of abusers, particularly men, have this idea that silence is honorable, and shutting up and moving, this desperation, move on, it's over, I'm done, I'm happy, I'm on my third wife with my new kid that no one knows, like, this concept of, you lost and I made you lose, but you could win again. I just broke you enough so that you don't even try, but you actually broke. That's on you. And it's just, I really want Daddy Recovery to be a place where, I'm a hot mess that's learning how to be a clearer one. It's still mess, because I wasn't born. I don't feel you are born onto this earth being perfect. And I also feel like you don't have to necessarily leave it perfect. I think you have to make peace. I think you have to balance. And I think that's what nirvana is. And it's something that I definitely learned, particularly because I love myths and I love God. And the concept of Lucifer being God's shadow self. And kind of one of the reasons he doesn't destroy him is because, A, God is not a destroyer. Energy cannot be necessarily destroyed. But what if this energy was a manifestation of all the parts of him he didn't see? I mean, after all, God created, no matter what, out of love, but also loneliness. This feeling of, there's something more to me. And the minute you say there's something more to me, are you coming from a happy place or an unhappy one? Right? Is it okay to say that there's more to you? Can you say there's more to you while appreciating what is to you? Discuss. Anyway, let's bring it back to Rio. So we were aimlessly walking in the park, and she's having a really hard time in her marriage because these are two people that love each other and that are best friends and are trying to use their child to heal these parts of themselves that they've never really confronted or had to because things were going so materially well. I mean, out of all of us, they made the most money. Out of all of us, they were doing, they have the best relationship. Out of all of us, they were traveling and my God, they're owning a house while everyone's renting. Hello, you're doing good. And then they have a baby, and it's like, well, just because we were doing better than most doesn't necessarily mean we were doing we were being the best version of ourselves or doing the best for ourselves. And I think Ismael sees having this baby as, I'm going to be the bendito, it makes me cry. I feel so bad. I'm going to be the most easygoing parent, and I'm going to love my kid, and I'm going to make them. Sorry, my dog is barking. I'm going to make them. They're going to have such a a breathy life. Not a, he had the breathless one. There's going to be no pressure, and we're going to have so much fun, and we're going to, everything's going to be easy, and I'm going to let them discover themselves. And she's had almost the flip side. She's super anxious. Don't become became a germaphobe. I don't want everybody touching him. I don't want everybody near him. I if is there or can we bubble our baby? Can we bubble wrap our baby? And it's such a contrasting reaction to having a child that totally stems from their upbringing of him having this very strict, as long as you succeed, then, and especially financially, who cares what you want to do to be happy? You'll have enough money to be happy. Happiness is a hobby kind of mentality. And Rio just always having to please everybody and never looking inward and never having permission to say, maybe I don't want everyone to be happy. Maybe, what if my happiness isn't their happiness? Like just not, I think people have natures, and how your environment nurtures it can totally affect you. And I think she's always been a little anxious by nature, always been a little neurotic, but I think her mother making her a people pleaser like herself kind of fed that insecurity of, I'm not likable when I'm anxious. So let me be quiet and let me hide my fear that everybody's going to end up a true crime episode by lovingly giving them first aid kits every time they go to vacation. Like it was, if you wear a really nice mask, nobody will notice that you're wearing fear under it. And it's something that my dad taught me too. He was very good at masks, and he was very protective of his mask. And I said it before, he didn't bury secrets, he buried people. And I think Rio, like myself, we're just two people that, because we're able to kind of control ourselves and make everybody feel really good about being with us, we don't see that maybe that's a problem. And if everybody's happy with us, it doesn't matter that we're not happy with us. But a kid just like rips that wound open. And it does matter if you're not happy with you, because you can traumatize that kid and tell yourself, well, it's something that I noticed in my own family. My family, and you weren't sick, I was sicker. You weren't poor, I was the poorest. They lived in this mentality of, I can't be traumatizing because I was traumatized. You don't know my villain because I'm not them. And thank God, like my father, despite all his crimes, despite all the people that he ruined, despite all the pain he caused, he swore that somehow nobody ever knew sadness like him. And it's because he was just sad. That was it. Do you know what I mean? Of course, nobody knows sadness like you if you're living in your sadness. Get help. In Rio, what Rio wanted was to, I think she got really scared that if she doesn't heal that, she's going to lose her mind. And especially with this world of information and everybody knowing everything about everybody, and this constant fear that we all can just be randomly ended by a natural disaster, by a violent disaster. I think that anxiety is only going to grow as she, I mean, imagine her baby's first day at school. My God, everybody knows about Sandy Hook. Like, there's just a real, it's a scary time to raise kids while knowing that somebody can end them. And it's not necessarily new. I think that's always been, but now it just really feels confirmed with all the information. And who knows, the biggest question in terms of sociology, one of the biggest. Does social media inform us of how bad we've always been and in turn make us worse, or is it really just informing us? Is it fueling a bear that we never noticed? I'm sorry, bears are actually sweet. I shouldn't say that. Man or bear, obviously bear. Um, is it opening a wound that we never noticed was even that bad, or is it just um and in turn making it worse, or is it just saying, hey, you really have a wound and you should start closing it, and I'm sorry you're the first generation that has to try, but hey, climate change. It's a question. It's a question. And I think she wants to actually heal and be a really good parent. And I think there's something so moving about her choice to love herself and get help. Not even for just to help her marriage, but to help her so she could end this years of living anxious and being neurotic and just having everybody kind of ignore it or approve of it because it came out in funny ways, like giving first aid kits every time somebody took a vacation. Now it's not funny, and now it has to get fixed. And she'll be fine. I really do feel good people. The fact that somebody said it once, the fact that you're trying to love yourself means you love yourself. The fact that you're trying to heal already means you're healing. So congrats, Ree. All right, check out daddyrecovery.com. Check out everything, really. We're making moves.